What if I told you that sometimes the most powerful move you can make is to step back, disappear for a while, and let the silence do the talking? Most people think influence comes from always being present, always showing up, always reminding others you're there. But the truth is, the more available you are, the less you're valued. The more you give, the less they see your worth. And the moment you pull away, suddenly everything shifts. Think about it. When was the last time someone walked out of your life, even briefly, and it left you unsettled? You noticed their absence more than their presence. That's because human beings are wired to crave what they don't have. Scarcity creates desire. Presence can be comfortable, but absence makes people think. It makes them miss what they took for granted. You don't have to fight for attention. You don't have to beg to be respected. Sometimes the most commanding statement you can make is not with words, but with silence. Not by proving yourself, but by removing yourself. And when you do, you force people to reevaluate your worth. So let me ask you this. Are you brave enough to pull away, to let them miss you, and watch how everything in your life begins to change? Most people underestimate the power of stepping back. We live in a world that constantly tells you to stay visible, to keep showing up, to keep reminding people that you exist. Social media thrives on this idea. Post more, share more, be seen more. But what happens when you remove yourself from the noise? What happens when you pull your energy back and create a gap in the spaces you once filled? That's where true presence is felt, through absence. Think about the people in your life right now, the ones you text, call, support, and check in on. You pour into them, and sometimes they barely notice. They expect it. They take your time, your presence, and your energy as a given. It's not that they're cruel, it's just human nature. When something is always there, it stops being special. You stop appreciating the light when it never turns off. But the moment it goes dark, suddenly everyone notices. Suddenly they remember how much they needed that light. This is the psychology of absence. We are wired to crave what's missing more than what's present. The brain values scarcity. If you've ever lost something important, even temporarily, you know how quickly your mind obsesses over it. That person you didn't value while they were near becomes unforgettable when they leave. That job you once complained about becomes precious when it's taken away. That friendship you ignored suddenly becomes the one thing you miss when the other person stops showing up. And this isn't just about other people valuing you, it's also about you valuing yourself. When you learn to pull back, you give yourself the chance to see who really notices your absence. You get to find out who reaches out when you go quiet, who checks on you when you're not the one initiating, who truly values your energy. Absence exposes truth. It separates those who are there because of convenience from those who are there because of commitment. The beauty of presence and absence is that it builds respect. When you're always available, people can take you for granted. They assume you'll always pick up the phone, always be there when they call, always sacrifice your time for their needs. But when you step back, when you stop making yourself so accessible, you change the dynamic. Suddenly your presence becomes valuable. It's no longer a guarantee, it's a privilege. People start realizing that your attention, your love, your time, it all carries weight. It's not about playing games. It's not about manipulation. It's about boundaries. It's about teaching the world how to treat you by showing them that your presence is not cheap. You can't buy respect by giving yourself away endlessly. You earn it by showing that you are selective with your time, intentional with your energy, and disciplined enough to step back when necessary. Absence also creates clarity. When you're constantly in the middle of people's lives, emotions, and problems, you don't have the space to think clearly. You're too involved, too tangled up in their expectations. But when you step away, you see things differently. You see who really values you, who only uses you, and who has been draining your energy without giving anything back. You also see yourself more clearly. You get to rediscover your own strength, your own voice, your own direction. There's power in silence. When you stop explaining yourself, when you stop chasing, when you stop trying to prove your worth, you create space for others to recognize it. And the ones who truly care will They'll notice your absence. They'll feel the gap you left behind. And those who don't notice, those who continue as if nothing changed. That's your answer. That's your sign that they were never meant to have all of you in the first place. Consider the way the most influential people operate. They are not everywhere, all the time. They are intentional with their presence. When they walk into a room, people notice not because they've been chasing attention, but because they've mastered the art of presence through absence. They don't need to be loud. They don't need to be constant. They know that stepping back builds mystery, anticipation, and respect. And when they return, their presence carries weight. This principle applies to relationships, friendships, careers, even your personal goals. When you stop chasing recognition and start focusing on yourself, you force others to recognize your value in your absence. At work, if you're always available, people will expect it. But when you set boundaries, when you take time away to grow, to learn, to build yourself, suddenly your contributions stand out more. In friendships, if you're always the one reaching out, it becomes routine. But when you stop, the silence speaks volumes. It reveals who was truly invested and who only stayed because you carried the connection. In relationships, constant availability can make you seem ordinary. But when you create space, your partner is reminded of your worth. They miss you. They see you differently. Here's the truth. People rarely appreciate what they have until it's gone. That doesn't mean you need to vanish forever. It means you must stop giving yourself away endlessly and freely. It means you must learn to step back, to let people feel your absence, to allow silence to do the work for you. And when you do, you'll find that your presence becomes far more powerful than it ever was when you were always available. So ask yourself, where in your life have you been giving too much? Who have you been showing up for without being valued in return? And what would happen if you step back just for a while? You might discover that everything changes. You might discover that the people who truly see you will step closer. And you might finally understand that your greatest strength is not always in showing up, but in knowing when to walk away and let your absence speak for itself. One of the biggest mistakes people make is believing that giving more will make them more valued. We pour out our time, our energy, our love, our attention, thinking that the more we give, the more people will appreciate us. But often the opposite happens. The more you give, the less it's noticed. The more you sacrifice, the more it's expected. And before you know it, you're drained, exhausted, and invisible in the very relationships and situations where you tried the hardest. Overgiving your energy doesn't make you stronger. It makes you weaker. It strips you of balance, of boundaries, of self-respect. You think you're helping people by always being there, but what you're really doing is teaching them that your presence costs nothing. And when something costs nothing, it's rarely respected. People respect what they have to earn, what they have to work for, what they know could be lost if they don't value it. If you're always available, always saying yes, always bending over backwards, then you've created a reality where your presence holds no weight. Think about it this way. Water is essential, but because it's everywhere, we forget its value until we don't have it. Diamonds, on the other hand, are rare, and their scarcity makes them precious. Your energy works the same way. If you give it away constantly to anyone who asks, it loses value. But if you protect it, if you become selective with who gets access to you, suddenly your presence becomes like gold, rare, treasured, respected. Overgiving doesn't only affect how others see you, it affects how you see yourself. Because every time you give away more than you should, you're taking from yourself. You're emptying your own cup, and when you're running on empty, you start to lose who you are. You stop recognizing your own worth. You begin to confuse being needed with being valued. You start to think your identity is tied to what you can do for others instead of who you are at your core. This is where resentment creeps in. You'll notice it in small ways. Feeling tired when the phone rings because you know it's another person who wants something from you. Feeling irritated when someone asks for help, even though you say yes anyway, feeling unappreciated. Because no matter how much you give, it never feels like enough. That's not love. That's not loyalty. That's you burning yourself out while others enjoy the light. There's a difference between kindness and self-sacrifice. Kindness is rooted in strength. It's when you choose to give because you want to, not because you feel forced to. But self-sacrifice, when it's constant and one-sided, is weakness. It's a way of telling the world that your needs don't matter, that your energy is endless, and that you'll keep giving even when you're empty. That's not noble, it's destructive. Because the truth is, you can't pour into others if you're running on fumes yourself. So how do you stop overgiving? It starts with boundaries. Boundaries are not walls to keep people out. They're guidelines that protect your energy. They're reminders to yourself and others that you matter to. Saying no doesn't make you selfish. Saying no doesn't mean you don't care. It means you respect yourself enough to not give beyond your limits. It means you understand that your energy is precious and it must be guarded if you want to live with strength and clarity. The hardest part is breaking the pattern. If you've been the person who always shows up, who always rescues, who always fixes everything, then people are used to it. They expect it. And when you finally start pulling back, some won't like it. They'll call you distant. They'll accuse you of changing. They might even guilt you, saying things like, "You're not the same anymore," or "You used to be there for me." But that's not a reflection of your lack of care. That's their discomfort with the boundaries you're building. They're not upset that you're protecting your energy. They're upset that they can no longer take advantage of it. This is why stopping the habit of overgiving requires courage. You have to be okay with disappointing people. You have to be okay with no longer being the hero in everyone's story. You have to accept that some people will walk away when they realize they can no longer use you. But here's the truth. Anyone who leaves because you set boundaries was never there for you in the first place. They were there for what you could do for them. And the moment that stopped, so did their loyalty. That's not a loss, it's a blessing. It clears space for people who will value you for you, not just for what you provide. And while you're protecting your energy from others, you also need to redirect it back into yourself. All that time and effort you used to give away, invested in your growth. Build your skills, strengthen your body, nurture your mind, deepen your faith, work on the goals you've been putting off. Because you are too busy tending to everyone else's needs. When you stop scattering your energy everywhere, you create focus. And focus creates results. You'll be amazed at how quickly your life transforms when you stop pouring into empty cups and start pouring into your own. The shift will be uncomfortable at first, but over time you'll notice something powerful. Your energy becomes magnetic. When you're no longer drained, when you're walking in strength, when you're confident and grounded, people will feel it. You won't have to chase respect or love. It will come to you, because the world senses when someone values themselves. And when you set the standard for how you should be treated, others either rise to meet it or they fall away. Either way, you win. So stop overgiving. Stop believing that being everything for everyone is the path to being valued. The truth is, the more you give without boundaries, the less you'll be respected. But the moment you draw the line, the moment you reclaim your energy, everything changes. You gain clarity, you gain strength, and most importantly, you gain the respect that comes from valuing yourself first.
Silence has a power most people overlook. We grow up being told to speak up, defend ourselves, explain ourselves, and make sure we are heard. And while there's truth in knowing when to use your voice, there's a deeper, often underestimated strength in silence. Silence can cut through noise more sharply than words ever can. It carries weight, mystery, and authority. It forces people to stop, to think, and to reconsider their assumptions about you. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all.
When you argue with someone, you feed their energy. You validate their behavior. You let them know they've gotten under your skin. But when you stay silent, when you refuse to play their game, you rob them of control. Silence unsettles people, especially those who thrive on reaction. They expect you to lash out, to defend yourself, to fight back. And when you don't, they're left with their own words echoing in the space between you. Silence makes them question themselves. Did they go too far? Did they lose your respect? Did they reveal more about themselves than they intended? That uncertainty is powerful. Think about moments in your own life when someone's silence spoke volumes. Maybe it was a friend who stopped responding after being hurt. Maybe it was a colleague who said nothing in a heated meeting, yet their silence shifted the room. Or maybe it was you when you walked away from an argument instead of fueling it. Silence can be louder than a scream because it leaves space for reflection. Words can be dismissed, argued with, or ignored. Silence cannot. Silence lingers. It makes people fill in the blanks, and often the story they create in their mind is more impactful than anything you could have said. Silence is also a tool of observation. When you're quiet, you hear more, you notice more, you pick up on details that others miss. You see who interrupts, who dominates, who stays calm, who grows uncomfortable. Silence gives you control of the room because you're not rushing to respond. You're studying, gathering information, and choosing your moment carefully. And when you finally do speak, people listen because your silence has already set the stage for your words to carry more weight. Too many people fear silence because they confuse it with weakness. They think being silent means being passive or powerless. But silence is not about surrender. It's about strategy. Silence gives you time to think, to process, to decide whether something even deserves your energy. Not everything does. Sometimes silence is the strongest boundary you can set. It says, I see what you're doing, but you won't get a piece of me. You don't deserve my words. This is especially true in relationships. When you constantly explain yourself, justify your actions, or defend your worth, you diminish your own value. You give away your power by trying to convince someone to see it. But when you go quiet, when you stop arguing, when you let your absence of words speak, you create space for the other person to realize your worth on their own. Silence doesn't chase. Silence doesn't beg. Silence doesn't try to prove anything. It simply says, I know who I am. You'll either recognize it or you won't. And either way, I'll be fine. In conflict, silence can de-escalate what words would only inflame. You don't have to match someone's aggression with aggression. You don't have to meet their disrespect with explanations. Silence denies them the fuel they need. It protects your peace. It allows you to stand tall without being dragged into the mud. And ironically, silence often communicates more strength than any defense ever could. But silence isn't just about how others perceive you, it's also about how you perceive yourself. Silence is where you find clarity. When you stop talking, when you pull away from the noise of everyone else's opinions, you start hearing your own voice again. You start hearing your instincts, your intuition, that quiet whisper inside that tells you what's right for you. Words often drown that voice out, but silence brings it forward. That's why moments of stillness, of reflection, of stepping away from the chaos are so important. In silence, you regain direction. Silence also builds anticipation. In a world where everyone is oversharing, over-explaining, and overexposing themselves, silence creates intrigue. When you don't reveal everything, people lean in. They wonder what you're thinking, what you're planning, what you're holding back. It makes your eventual words more impactful because they're rare. People start to realize that when you speak, it matters. Silence is the contrast that makes your voice stand out. Of course, silence requires discipline. It's not easy to stay quiet when someone disrespects you, misunderstands you, or underestimates you. The urge to prove yourself, to correct them, to defend your honor is strong. But strength isn't about reacting in the moment, it's about choosing the right moment. And sometimes the right moment never comes, because silence already did the work for you. Silence communicates that you don't need validation, you don't need to engage, you don't need to prove anything. You're secure enough to let the silence carry your message. The truth is, silence is not emptiness, it's power contained. It's the pause before a decision. It's the stillness that reveals character. Yours and theirs. It's the reminder that you don't need to fight every battle, you don't need to correct every lie, and you don't need to respond to every provocation. Silence is not weakness. Silence is restraint, control, and strength disguised in simplicity. So the next time you're tempted to react, ask yourself, what would happen if I said nothing? What if I let my silence do the talking? You may be surprised by the effect it has. People will notice, people will reflect, people will feel the weight of your quiet presence. And in that silence, you'll find your true power. Because sometimes the loudest voice in the room is the one that doesn't need to speak at all. When you step back and let people feel your absence, the most important thing you can do is not sit around wondering how they feel about it. Too many people make the mistake of pulling away just to watch for a reaction. They wait for a call, a message, an apology, some sign that they're being missed. But that's not real strength. That's still being chained to someone else's validation. The real power comes when you pull away and redirect all that energy back into yourself. When you stop pouring into others who don't value you and you start pouring into your own growth, your own healing, your own future, that's when everything changes. Think about how much energy you've wasted trying to get people to see your worth. All those late night texts you sent, hoping for a reply, all the favors you did, hoping it would earn appreciation, all the ways you bent yourself out of shape just to be accepted. What if all of that energy had been invested in you? Where would you be right now? If you had given that same level of attention to your own goals, your own dreams, your own growth. The truth is, while you were busy trying to prove yourself to others, you neglected yourself. And that's why focusing on you is not just an option, it's a necessity. When people miss you, let them. Don't chase their response. Don't stalk their reactions. Don't wonder what they're thinking. Instead, get busy. Get busy working on your body, your mind, your spirit, your finances, your purpose. Get so consumed with your own progress that whether they notice your absence or not becomes irrelevant. Because here's the thing, when you grow, when you elevate, when you transform, people notice, they always notice. Maybe not right away, but eventually they see the shift. And by the time they realize what they lost, you'll be too focused on your next level to care. Focusing on yourself doesn't mean becoming selfish. It means recognizing that you are your most valuable asset. Your health, your mindset, your skills, your inner peace. Those are the things that shape your life. Without them, you can't be your best for anyone else. But when you nurture them, when you strengthen yourself from the inside out, you become magnetic. People are drawn to those who radiate self-confidence, self-discipline, and self-respect. And the irony is, the more you focus on yourself, the more others want to be around you. Not because you're chasing them, but because you've stopped. Imagine the difference between two people. One who waits by the phone, checking constantly to see if they've been missed, and another who uses that same time to build a business, learn a new skill, hit the gym, or dive into self-development. Who do you think becomes more attractive? Who do you think commands more respect? The one sitting in silence hoping for attention, or the one leveling up so much that attention becomes unavoidable? This is where absence becomes a gift. While others are left wondering about you, you're working in silence, building yourself in ways they can't see yet. You're stacking wins, you're becoming sharper, stronger, wiser. And when you reappear, you don't come back the same. You come back upgraded. That transformation is impossible to ignore. People don't miss who you were. They're stunned by who you've become. Focusing on yourself also heals you from the inside. When you've been overgiving, over-explaining, over-chasing, your self-worth takes a hit. You start to believe you're only valuable when you're doing something for others. But when you redirect that effort back into yourself, you rebuild your confidence. You start to remember that you are enough without anyone's validation. You don't need to be chosen because you've already chosen yourself. That inner strength becomes unshakable. And here's the truth. When you start focusing on yourself, some people will notice and try to pull you back. They'll sense the shift. They'll see that you're no longer waiting around, and it will bother them. They may test you, trying to see if they still have the same hold over you. They may reach out, not because they truly value you, but because they miss the control they once had. Don't fall for it. Don't get distracted. Remember, you're not focusing on yourself to prove anything to anyone. You're doing it because you deserve it, because your growth, your success, your peace matters more than whether someone else finally realizes what they had. This is why discipline is so important. Focusing on yourself isn't easy, especially when you're used to putting everyone else first. It takes discipline to choose the gym over a late-night text. It takes discipline to invest in a course instead of scrolling through someone's social media wondering if they're missing you. It takes discipline to put your head down and grind while others are out there wasting time. But discipline is what creates transformation. And when you start seeing the results in your confidence and your strength and your achievements, you'll realize it was worth it. At the end of the day, letting people miss you is not about them at all. It's about you. It's about reclaiming your power, redirecting your energy, and investing in the only person you're guaranteed to spend your whole life with, you. And when you do, everything changes. The way you see yourself changes. The way you carry yourself changes. The way people treat you changes. Because when you elevate yourself, the world has no choice but to adjust to the new standard you've set. But stop waiting. Stop hoping for someone to recognize your value. Stop wasting your energy on reactions you can't control. Let them miss you, and while they're busy noticing the gap you left behind, you'll be too busy building a life so strong, so fulfilling, and so powerful that whether they come back or not won't even matter. Because the truth is, when you focus on yourself, you stop needing anyone to validate you. You stop chasing, you stop begging, you simply rise. And that rise is something no one can ever take from you. When you pull away and let people miss you, the temptation is strong to come back too soon. To rush back in hoping that the silence was enough to make them realize your value. But here's the truth. The way you return matters just as much as the fact that you step back. If you return with desperation, begging to be noticed, trying to prove that you are worth their attention, then all the progress you made in your absence is lost. The gap you created only has power if you fill it with strength, not weakness. You must return with power, not desperation. Desperation is loud. It's needy. It's the constant texting, the chasing, the begging for scraps of attention. Desperation says, I can't live without you. And nothing kills respect faster than that. People don't admire what they can control. They don't value what they can take for granted. If you return with desperation, you remind them of why they stopped noticing you in the first place. You show them that even after distance, you're still willing to settle for less than you deserve. Power, on the other hand, is quiet. Doesn't need to announce itself. Power walks into a room differently. It's in the way you carry yourself, in the confidence of your silence, in the strength of your boundaries. When you return with power, you don't come back begging to be included. You come back standing tall, knowing that your worth was never dependent on their recognition in the first place. You don't need them to validate you. You already validated yourself in your absence. That's what makes your presence magnetic again. Returning with power means you've used your time away wisely. While others were wondering where you went, you were working, you were healing, growing, learning, and building. You were sharpening yourself so that when you re-enter any space, whether it's a relationship, a workplace, or even a friendship, you're not the same person who left. You're stronger, you're wiser, you're elevated, and that transformation demands attention. People may not know what changed, but they'll feel it. They'll sense the difference in your energy and your focus in the way you move. This is why your silence and absence must be purposeful. It's not just about walking away, it's about what you do while you're gone. If you disappear and spend that time sulking, stalking, and waiting, you gain nothing. You return the same or worse, weaker than before. But if you disappear and spend that time pouring into yourself, building yourself, disciplining yourself, you create a version of you that cannot be ignored. That's the difference between absence as a game and absence as a strategy. One seeks attention, the other builds power. When you return with power, you set new standards. You no longer tolerate the treatment you once accepted. You no longer chase after people who don't see you. You no longer beg for a seat at tables that don't honor you. Instead, you build your own table. You decide where your energy goes, and you protect it fiercely. And people notice. They notice that you've stopped giving yourself away so easily. They notice that your presence now comes with boundaries. And suddenly the same people who once overlooked you are trying to earn a place in your life again. But here's where your strength is tested. Not everyone who misses you deserves access to you again. Just because someone realizes your value after you step back doesn't mean they've changed. Sometimes people only miss the benefits you provided. They miss the convenience of having you available, not the essence of who you are. This is why you must return with discernment. With power comes the responsibility to choose wisely who gets to experience the new version of you. Some people should only be allowed to watch from a distance. Others, if they've truly grown, may earn their way back. But either way, the choice is yours, not theirs. Returning with power also means you communicate differently, you don't explain yourself endlessly, you don't justify your absence, you don't apologize for protecting your energy. Your presence alone explains everything. If someone asks why you changed, why you pulled back, why you're different, the answer is simple: because you had to be, because you value yourself too much to stay the same. Because the version of you who gave too much, begged too much, and settled too much no longer exists. People will respect that. Even if they don't admit it out loud, they'll feel it. Respect doesn't come from shouting or proving, it comes from living in alignment with your worth. And when you return carrying that kind of energy, you don't need to demand respect. It comes naturally. Returning with power also changes how you see yourself. Once you've stepped back, focused on yourself, and grown stronger, you start to realize you don't actually need the validation you were once chasing. You don't need people to notice your absence to feel complete. You don't need to re-enter spaces that no longer serve you. You return not because you have to, but because you choose to. And that choice comes from a place of freedom, not desperation. Here's the truth: not everyone will clap when you come back stronger. Some will be threatened, some will be uncomfortable, some will wish you had stayed the same, because the weaker version of you was easier to control. That's okay. Their discomfort is not your responsibility. Your only responsibility is to keep moving forward, to keep honoring your growth, and to keep living in the power you've built. So when you step back, make it count. Use that silence to rebuild yourself. And when you return, don't come crawling back into the same patterns, the same cycles, the same weaknesses. Return with power. Return with clarity. Return with strength that makes people realize you were never ordinary. You were always extraordinary. They just didn't see it before. And by the time they do, you'll be so far ahead, so grounded in your own worth, that whether they catch up or not won't even matter. Because the truth is, life is not about proving to others that they should miss you. It's about proving to yourself that you never needed their validation in the first place. Return with power, not desperation, and watch everything in your life shift in your favor. When you really step back and think about it, this whole journey isn't about them at all. It's about you. Letting people miss you isn't a tactic to manipulate or control others. It's a decision to reclaim your value. It's the courage to stop over-giving your energy. It's the wisdom to use silence as strength instead of weakness. It's the discipline to focus on yourself while others wonder where you went. And most importantly, it's the strength to return, not as the same person they once overlooked, but as a version of yourself that commands respect without ever asking for it. The truth is, you don't have to fight to be seen. You don't have to beg to be loved. You don't have to chase to be respected. When you know your worth, you stop proving it and you start living it. That's when the world adjusts. That's when people notice. That's when the same presence they once ignored becomes unforgettable in its absence. So here's the challenge. Stop pouring yourself into places that drain you. Step back when you need to. Hold your silence when it speaks louder than words. Pour your energy into yourself, your growth, your future. And when you walk back into any room, any relationship, any opportunity, walk in with power, not desperation. Because in the end, the ones who truly value you will never need constant reminders of your worth. And those who don't, let them miss you. Let them sit with the silence you leave behind. And while they do, keep rising, keep building, keep becoming, because your greatest strength will never be in how loudly you fight to be noticed. It will be in how powerfully you grow when no one is watching. Let them miss you and watch everything change